and thank you very much for your time and for participating in this program. I think this is a very relevant program today. It's a very relevant, component because we are all looking for higher value addition in our manufacturing, and we all know that this is the place to start. If we start making more, PCBs in the
વાંધો
country.
નહીં, તમે જે જોઈએ મને કહી દો. અને ટાઈમલાઈન શું છે, બ્લેક ને વ્હાઈટ શું છે, બી મને બધું કોણ દસ્તાવેજનું ડ્રાફ્ટિંગ મને બતાવી દો.
ડ્રાફ્ટિંગ હું આ તમારા 10-15 દિવસમાં તમને હું આપી દઈશ, આવી જશે.
Kushal ji, hello, thank you. I think that was Kushal ji. It was very much from Gujarat. So thank you very much. Good to know you are on board, Kushal ji. So, sir, I think this is something which is very relevant, and I just want to share, in one sentence briefly that we started. We have always been working for the PCB industry along with IPCA, who have always supported us, and we also support them. But we wanted to focus more on the manufacturing aspects of the PCB industry, and that has been always our core area. And then we have been doing some research now for the last 4 to 5 years, and we got support from MMI India, which we really appreciate, and this has enabled us to come up with some fairly comprehensive reports which give us information about what is the opportunity and what.
Raju, we've lost you. I think can't hear you.
My mic is. I'm unmuted, sir.
We can hear him, sir. We can hear him.
We can hear him.
Maybe sometimes it happens. I don't.
Yeah,
know.
we can hear.
Okay, good. So anyway, with that, I think we have now started doing a bit of research in this area, which we feel is very important if we want to get more investments in the country. Because without information, people cannot decide on what they want to do and what is the opportunity. So that is one important thing I wanted to share. I will quickly do a quick introduction. Rather, I'll just name our speakers for the benefit of our participants. And we have the profiles on the screen, and I hope everybody can see them. Mr. Saurabh Gaur, who will be joining later on, our Joint Secretary. He, of course, is pivotal person for us now. He's really very, very active. One of the youngest Joint Secretaries, maybe in the central government. And one good thing is that he has been part of the development agenda of the country and of the government of India. So he has got a lot of experience in that area, though being a very, very young officer. So we welcome Mr. Gaur. We'll be waiting for him, and I hope he'll be joining by 1 o'clock. Then we have Mr. Marwa. Thank you, Mr. Marwa, for joining us today, and we look forward to your views on what the government is doing. And we are all looking forward to a lot of support from METI. I think METI has been a pillar of great support for this industry, and a lot of things have changed since the 2012 policy came. Thank you very much, Mr. Marwa, for joining us, and with your experience, and I think now we can also call you a veteran, because I think you've been in METI now for 26 years. So you are also now a veteran, sir. Thank you very much. I also welcome Mr. Amrit Manwani, our president, and also a great supporter of Alsina. And not only Alsina, I think what is really remarkable, what I feel about Mr. Manwani is that the energy that he exudes, and which is almost contagious, and he encourages all of us to do more. He has a lot of experience, as you can see on the screen, with L&T and with GE, USA, which is of course a great strength for him and for all of us. So we welcome Mr. Manwani, and then I welcome our friend Mr. Devendranath, Dev, as we all know him. He's been a great support in our research activities, and we really appreciate what he's doing. Dev has about 25 years of experience in this area and has done a lot of great work, in research-based advisory work and assessment and analysis, etc. So we welcome you, Dev, and thank you very much for this report which you have prepared, and we look forward to your presentation. Our panelists are there, whom I would like to introduce when we start the panel discussion. But we have Mr. Sunil Banwari, Mr. Richard Kuthota, Mr. Anurag Dhoot, Mr. Kushal Patel, and Mr. Palaniyappan Muthaiya from Carl Zeiss. I'll be giving a brief introduction of yours when we start the panel discussion. Thank you very much, sir. And now I will request Mr. Manwani to kindly give his address to all of us. Thank you very much, Mr. Manwani.
Yeah, Raju, thank you very much, and good afternoon to all the audience and participants. A very warm welcome to Mr. S.K. Marwa, and of course, I hope that Mr. Saurabh Gaur will join later after some time. A warm welcome to the panelists, Sunil, Richard, Anurag, Kushal, Mr. Muthaiya, and of course, Dev. The topic that has been chosen for today's webinar, establishing a robust value chain for a self-reliant manufacturing sector, is more apt today than any time in the history of electronic sector in the country. Mainly because the geopolitical situations that are taking place worldwide, and there's a reorientation of manufacturing, moving from one location to the other, or some manufacturing locations to other manufacturing locations. But being specific about PCBs, what I would like to mention here is that where we are in terms of the global scenario. Of course, later Mr. Devendranath would present his findings and his presentation on the scenario of PCBs both globally as well as domestically. But what I would like to say is that the total market for PCBs globally, being about anywhere between $65 to $70 billion as of today, 50% of that is manufactured in China. Now, as compared to that, the Indian manufacturing is about $350 million or thereabout, $350 to $400 million perhaps. So we, compared to China, our share is only 1% as compared to Chinese production. So look at the gap that we have, and it will really be a big challenge to narrow that gap. I don't think in the foreseeable future of at least a decade we can come up to that level, but at least try to narrow the gap. The market size globally is expected to grow at the rate of about 3 to 4%. But in India, because we are starting from a very low base, the growth is expected to be anywhere between 20 to 30%. That requires tremendous amount of investment. That requires tremendous amount of entrepreneurship, and with a clear focus on growing manufacturing in the country. However, there are some issues that we have to deal with. I would just briefly take a couple of minutes to highlight those issues. Clearly, one of our biggest challenges is that PCB is classified in the ITA 1, and that's the biggest challenge because import of PCBs is duty-free. And because of that, even the manufacturing, say, single side, metal clad, double side, 4-layer, where we have adequate capability and capacity, but we are not able to compete with, imports from other countries, particularly our neighboring country. So that's a big challenge on us, big issue. We don't have scale of manufacturing. We have about, in all, I would say anywhere between 15 to 25 companies who are in, I would say, professional grade PCB manufacturing and with some kind of scale. The other about 100 to 200 are absolutely, kind in the micro or small manufacturing sector. There are challenges with, the capital that is required. The capital in India is at a very high cost as against these other competing countries like Vietnam, Taiwan, Malaysia, Thailand, etc., etc. Those are the disability factors, and I'm sure these will be addressed during the panel discussions or by Shri Marwaji. We have to recognize that our ecosystem, particularly for supply chain, is very weak. We do not have any manufacturing in the raw material supplies, be it solder mask, be it dry film, and of course, most importantly, the laminates, whether they are metal core laminates or FR4 laminates. So that's a big challenge. We have to create an ecosystem, and we also have to create an infrastructure that will enable us to be able to, produce PCBs productively, I would say. The other main issue is that unfortunately in our country, we always look at the lowest price. We do not seem to encourage local manufacturing. I'm sure all the PCB manufacturers who are today on the panel or those who are not, they would agree with me that by and large, the Indian customer or consumer is looking, if he gets a benefit of 1 or 2 paise, he shifts to importing, despite the fact that many times he gets stuck with payment terms or quality issues, but he would still like to go for the lowest price. So somehow we have to inculcate that feeling of pride of made in India, use of made in India product. How would we address that? I think we have to collectively work towards that. Lastly, the most important thing is unless we develop R&D in product design, R&D in technology in PCB manufacturing, R&D in production technology of PCB manufacturing, we will always remain behind whether it is China, Taiwan, Korea, and other countries like Malaysia, Philippines, Thailand, Vietnam, etc. So with these, some thoughts that I thought I would bring to the table. Once again, welcome all the participants, all the panelists, and I wish a very good panel discussion, very thought-provoking panel discussions. Once again, thank you all the panelists and Marwaji, and of course Raju Goel. I would also like to thank the Elsina team who have relentlessly put in a lot of efforts to make this webinar happen. And in the past, also in the last 2-3 months during COVID times, Elsina team has done a wonderful job, and I'm personally indebted to them for promoting component industry and particularly the PCB industry in India. Thank you very much, and I look forward to hearing all the panelists with the thought-provoking ideas. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you also for the kind words for Elsina. Thank you so much. Very nice of you, sir. We do keep trying, and I think the team works very well. It is very important that yes, we narrow the gap, as you said. I think the gap between the demand and supply is really huge, and we are sure that with the PLI and the spec scheme and all the new policies and the new MSME definition and all that coming up, I think a lot of things are going to change in India. I will now request Dave to please come on and share your presentation and whatever are your findings in this report. So over to you, Dave. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajuji, for this. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to present the report which we have done for Elsina. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope all of you are doing well in these difficult times. It gives me a great pleasure to present the report which we have prepared for Elsina. I hope everybody is able to see my screen. Yes. Okay. So we have titled this report, Indian Printed Circuit Board Industry Aiming for a 10x Growth in Domestic Manufacturing. I will talk about why we are aiming for 10x growth in domestic manufacturing later in my presentation. So let me, without wasting much time, let me quickly get into the report what we have for release today. We start with an overview of the global PCB industry, and then we'll talk about the Indian industry. As Mr. Manwani already said, the global PCB market currently valued around $68 billion and is likely to reach about $88 billion by 2024. This has been growing at around 4% and is likely to grow around 4.4% in the next 3-4 years. And Mr. Manwani also touched upon this subject that nearly 50% of the global manufacturing is with China, no doubt. And China, South Korea, and Taiwan, they account for close to 70% of the global PCB capacity in the country. And this World Electronic Circuit Council estimates Indian market to be about 2%, while from our report, you will see that we are somewhere in the range of 2.5, 2.6% in that sense. But we are still a relatively very small player in the global market. If you look at the global market, this has been predominantly been driven by the growth in the mobile business as well as the consumer segments and the communication and automotive electronics, which has been a key growth driver. The miniaturization of semiconductors is one of the key reasons for the growth of PCB industry, as well as more complex PCBs we are witnessing today as compared to what we have seen in the past. So this is a brief view about what is happening globally and where it is headed. Now let's turn our attention to the Indian industry. The Indian PCB market, if you see, it is heavily dependent on imported PCBs. Everybody knows that. Our study comes up with a number that nearly 95% of the PCBs required for the Indian market is currently imported. Let us look at how this has been done with. The current Indian PCB consumption in the country is about $2.5 billion. We have arrived through a lot of interviews with the industry players as well as the end users, and we have taken various norms to arrive at this number. We have also looked at the overall electronics production as per MATI. The study was done in the late last year and finished early this year. So we are reporting numbers for FY 2018-19. So as per FY 2018-19 per MIT, the Indian electronic products manufacturing was about $60 billion. We have not considered the $10 billion of electronic components from this. And the electronic BOM for the $60 billion of electronic products is roughly around $38 billion. And the PCB consumption is about $2.5 billion, which works out to be roughly 4% of the total electronic products cost, or the 7% of the electronic BOM. This gives you a brief idea. Now, when we consider this $2.5 billion, there is a $0.7 billion of PCBs which comes as part of the PCBA. There is a huge amount of PCB imports, close to about $11 billion of PCBA imports in the country for 2018-19. And if we estimate the PCB component out of that $11 billion, it's roughly $0.7 billion. So the fact that India consumes $1.8 billion of bare PCBs is actually the finding. And when we look at how this $1.8 billion of bare PCBs are used, the domestic manufacturing is close to around $235 to $50 million. Out of this, we export around $138 million of PCBs, and we sell close to $96 to $100 million of PCBs in the Indian market. And about $1.7 billion of bare PCBs are imported, and therefore that is how the $1.8 billion of PCB demand is being met. The key point to note is nearly 60% of what is manufactured in the country is exported, and we are not able to sell in the Indian market due to various reasons, which we'll discuss later on. If you look at this $2.5 billion of PCBs which are consumed in the country, the various industry verticals contribute to it, but industrial verticals, consumer and mobile, they account for close to more than 75 to 80% of the requirement. And the mobile is one segment which is growing leaps and bounds and is likely to grow in the next 4 or 5 years as well. The other segments include lighting, computer hardware, and strategic electronics. And when we talk of PCBAs and PCBs, the mobile was a segment till 2018-19 was dependent completely on PCBAs being imported. The PCBA assembly started in 2019-20. So next year when we report an update of this report, you will see some amount of PCB manufacturing, PCBA being done in India. Therefore, the PCB requirement for the mobile industry will start reporting in the next year, in the next report. Otherwise, most segments, they depend largely on bare PCBs, and a few segments like televisions and strategic electronics, some parts, they rely on PCB imports. And when we look at the types of PCBs, this $1.8 billion of PCBs which we consume, this is largely dominated by single-sided and double-sided still. About 65 to 70% is dominated by these two. Multi-layer is about 25%, and the 4% is flex and rigid flex, etc. And across industry segments, if you notice, a mobile is essentially multi-layer and flex predominantly. Industrial electronics is one segment where a large amount of single-sided still continues to be there, and double-sided there. The multi-layer is small part of it. Strategic electronics largely depends on double-sided as well as multi-layer PCBs. And in consumer electronics, television being a big part of it, relies on multi-layer PCBs and flex coming in there. The Indian PCB market has tremendous growth drivers currently when we look at the overall electronics business in India. The key being the whole campaign of Atmanirbhar Bharat, or Make in India campaign, to make electronics in India. I think that is one great leverage for the PCB market to grow leaps and bounds in future. There has also been a great influx of electronics consumption in the country in terms of new applications, right from payments to Internet of Things to home automation to security, cameras everywhere. So, and now the electric vehicles is another segment which is likely to come up in a big way in the country. So, all these newer applications drive demand for electronic products and thereby the PCBs. And we have also seen in the recent months, the government of India has recognized this whole aspects of electronics business, and they have come out with some very favorable policies. There are more things required by the industry, which I'm sure METI is looking forward to helping the industry there. So there are drivers, and based on these drivers, we estimate the Indian PCB market to grow from the current 1.8 billion of bare PCBs to likely to reach $7.3 billion. With one key driver here being the mobile business, which is currently not being done in this year. It's been done from the FY 18-19, it was not there. That is likely to reach nearly $4 billion of the $7.3 billion. And the other segments of industrial electrons likely to reach $1.6 billion and consumer likely to reach around $1 billion by 2025. And if you see the type of PCBs by 2025, the multi-layer PCBs are likely to have a very, very dominant presence going forward because most applications are moving towards multi-layer PCBs. And the Indian manufacturing is largely single-sided and double-sided, and there are few players, as Mr. Marmani said, few professional PCB manufacturers who are into multi-layer PCBs, but more needs to be done. So when we look at the PCB business in the country, there is definitely a huge opportunity to invest in an integrated PCB manufacturing ecosystem that is desperately needed for us, looking at the kind of the growth indicators we are seeing. And it desperately calls out for mega investments in PCB manufacturing. Also, the fact that the multi-layer PCB is hardly existing in the country, it's very few people have this, and the whole market is moving towards multi-layers, show that there needs to be investments focused on these segments. There, while we look at the PCB consumption, even though we are talking of different verticals and so many products, etc., therefore there could be a need for a focused effort. What we are saying is when we look at just three product categories, we look at mobile phones, televisions, and computer hardware. Just focusing on this three focus segments itself can easily give us a market of $4.8 to $5 billion. And if a focused effort is made to target this business, this can lead to mega investments coming in and thereby an ecosystem getting created. And we also already have a positive government support for the PCB industry and the electronic industry in general. So all these factors lead to a very positive opportunity for investments in the PCB industry in India. Mr. Marmani touched upon various challenges which the industry is currently facing. I would just put it very simply in the sense of this industry is stuck in a vicious cycle with no end in sight, primarily because of its low volumes. This has led to no raw material supplier being present in the country, and most of the industry depending on the imports for raw materials, and thereby which increases their cost to compete both in the domestic market as well as in the global market, which leads to the declining market share and thereby not helping the Indian companies to invest further in technology and grow in new capacities, etc., to get in the scale. So all this requires some, if the Indian industry is able to invest megabucks and set up economies of scale plants in India, that will be great. If not, we need to desperately invite global investors to come and invest in PCB manufacturing in the country. Finally, the report has some recommendations for the industry based on our interactions with various industry players. We have categorized our recommendations into three broad buckets. One is a long-term strategy, what is required for the industry. Other is a mid-term strategy, what is needed. And then there are some immediate needs which needs to be addressed by the government or the industry put together. So the first thing what we are talking in terms of a long-term strategy is essentially we need to, as a nation, we need to have a vision or a goal for setting up the PCB manufacturing in the country. Currently, we are just $235 million of PCB manufacturing in the country. If we need to create a tangible and a realistic goal, which meets the market realities, and we are saying that there is definitely a possibility to reach a $2 billion domestic manufacturing for PCBs manufacturing, which is nearly a 10x growth from the current levels of production. And this $2 billion is essentially arrived from the fact that if you look at the mobile industry of $4 billion of requirement of PCBs by 2025, if we set a target of meeting only 30% of this requirement, this itself is $1.2 billion. And the other segments of industrial, televisions, and others could contribute to the rest $0.8 billion of PCB requirements. And thereby, this $2 billion seems to be a very realistic kind of a target which the nation should aspire to have, given the kind of growth indicators we have. And then once we have this, this needs to be marketed globally with road shows, etc., which both the government as well as the industry needs to go and say that this is the kind of vision we have, and this is the kind of a goal we are chasing. Like we are seeing in the solar goal, the goal of 100 gigawatts set by the Prime Minister was a number which the whole industry started chasing. Even though we may not reach that 100 gigawatt by the time frame, but we are still in the reckoning to follow something there. Along with this, in the medium-term strategy, we are essentially talking of taking care of the ITA1 issues which the industry is facing, because of which duty-free imports of PCBs is happening. If the government could look at addressing this at least for single-sided and double-sided PCBs and try to remove this with from this ITA1 list, this will help the Indian industry to address this. Plus, there are other things which I'm sure the policies like PLI and specs, etc., would already be addressing. In the immediate need, since the whole problem of raw materials is being faced by the people, and many large companies, they import raw materials and they have to pay for the capital as well as the storing inventory charges for these raw materials. And this industry is then dependent on the distributors. So there is a need for providing a deemed supplier status to the distributors. If this is being arranged for, then the local industry, PCB manufacturing companies, both the large as well as smaller companies, need not invest in foreign exchange for buying this PCBs from global sources, and they could get it locally from these distributors and at a much better price. So this is what we have in terms of the report. I'm sure the panel would discuss much more. Rajuji, over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dev. It is definitely, a very good analysis, and we've been through it earlier, and I'm sure it will be very useful for all the participants and for all stakeholders. There are only two things I would like to say here about the report. One is that I think you did not mention that the industrial electronics pie, which is a very large share, it includes a number of subsectors.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it includes the medical electronics, the power,
automotive,
telecom. So it is a very large area, and it has been defined and broken down in the report. So that the report gives more details about the same.
Sure.
Secondly, as is very clear about PCBs, from what I have understood and what the report is also saying, and I think all the experts here know that this is a question of really making it viable. There is an issue of the supply chain. There is an issue of of economies of scale. We don't have large enough players. We have issues which relate to importing large amounts of raw materials and then having to stock them for a long time. So I think there are a number of challenges which need to be overcome, and they just need to be addressed, and we need to keep on chipping away at the problems one by one, so that we can reach our goal. And actually a 10x growth is really not that big a goal, because even after 10x growth, we'll be only meeting 30-40% of our requirement. So I think those are the few points that I would like to just share here. I will now request Mr. Marwa to kindly give his special address and special remarks. Mr. Marwa, may I now request you to please address all the participants and all of us and share your views.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good
Can you
afternoon.
hear me, please?
Yes, very clearly, very clearly.
Okay. It's indeed a pleasure to be part of this webinar today, where we are discussing this extremely important topic of promoting domestic manufacturing of PCBs. So PCBs are actually the heart of all electronic products. It is a key electronic component, and that needs the capabilities need to be developed domestically for manufacturing of the various types of PCBs, multi-layer PCBs, and all the modern, we need to be at the forefront of technology as far as PCB manufacturing is concerned. So if we see today, we have a large number of manufacturers, but leaving aside about 15 of them, all of them are small scale. They are very small and meeting the small volume requirements only. So because of that, since these PCBs are covered under the Information Technology Agreement of WTO, thereby the import duty is zero. So these manufacturers are, because of the lack of size and scale, they are not able to compete with the global manufacturers. So given our inherent disabilities present in the domestic manufacturing ecosystem. But going ahead, under the National Policy on Electronics 2019, we will be focusing on size and scale. We will be focusing on deepening the value addition and promoting exports in a big way. So while the industry needs to scale up and also needs to develop capabilities, upgrade the technology, and scale up substantially to become globally competitive. So for that, we have already included PCBs under both the new schemes, the production linked incentive scheme, where we'll be providing 4 to 6% production linked incentive, as well as the scheme for promotion of manufacturing of components and semiconductors that we call specs. So as you can see in both these schemes, we have covered the entire ecosystem of PCB manufacturing, right from the finished bare PCBs to PCB laminates, prepegs, photopolymer films, PCB printing inks, all of that is covered. And with the clear mandate that we need to develop the entire value chain, entire supply chain of PCB manufacturing, that needs to be built up in the country. And unfortunately, out of the demand of about $1.8 billion of bare PCBs, more than 90% of it is being imported. And going ahead, because of our NPE targets, where we are targeting $400 billion of production by 2025, this demand will easily reach about $7.5 billion by 2025. And just depending on imports is not the right way. We need to develop our domestic manufacturing capabilities. So the key products which will drive the demand for PCBs in the coming years are, as already brought out in the presentation, are the mobile phones, the computer hardware, televisions, and set-top boxes. So these will be the key demand drivers of PCBs. And I will urge the industry, to look at the growing demand and make their investment plans and take advantage of the spec scheme. Though the PLI scheme is over, but let's see if we can extend it further for the core electronic components, because I personally feel that it's extremely important that to compensate for the disabilities, we give some production link incentive besides the capex subsidy. Now, the capex subsidy of 25% under specs is available for 3 years. The window is quite big one. But I'll still urge the manufacturers to look at the opportunity and start manufacturing. So with these words, I would like to congratulate each Elsina for organizing this webinar and all the stalwarts of the industry, the leaders of the industry present here. And I would urge them that they look at the sector seriously and plan their investments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Marwa. I think with all the effort that Mighty has put in to come up with these new schemes, and they are very aggressive schemes, I must say that there is, we see a lot of, I would say, light at the end of the tunnel. So I'm sure this is going to be, a rapid growth period or era for the electronics industry. And I thank you very much, sir, for your comments and for your remarks. I would request you to kindly stay with us for a little while longer. We are waiting, of course, for the JS to join us, but please do stay with us till the
Sure.
program is going
Sure.
on. We'll be very grateful. Thank you so much. Thank you. With that, we are now going to start our panel discussion, and we have all the 5 panelists here, all from they are very they're key players, I would say, in this industry, and all from slightly different domains and from different parts of the supply chain, so to say. We have Mr. Sunil Banwari, of course, who has a lot of experience, global experience with iconic companies like Intel and ON Semiconductors and Smith Interconnection, and he is now leading the largest company in India, which is the largest manufacturer of PCBs, and I guess with the highest technology also. But I understand that AT&S, which is Mr. Banwari's company, is mainly looking after exports, or it's focused more on exports, but I'm sure they will be doing more in the domestic market also. Welcome, Sunil ji. Mr. Richard Puthota, Richard, welcome to the webinar, and I thank you very much for joining with us. With your experience, and especially you're a specialist in the supply chain, and also in the technology which is part of the value chain of the PCB industry and the EMS industry also. I'm sure your views will be very, very valuable. Thank you very much and welcome. Then I also welcome Mr. Kushal Patel, the president of IPCA and the MD of Fine Line Circuits. He has business in India and Gujarat as well as in the USA, and is a true entrepreneur and a leader of the industry. Thank you very much, Kushal ji, for joining us. I would also like to welcome Mr. Anurag Dhoot, who's I guess one of I think their company now, Epitome Components, is now the second largest manufacturer in the country. Congratulations for that, Mr. Dhoot, Anurag ji, and I'm sure that you will continue to grow and expand as you have been doing in the last so many years. It's a very challenging industry, and you've kept your place in the industry. That itself is a compliment to you. Thank you very much for joining us. And last but not the least, I would like to welcome Mr. Muthaiya, Mr. Palaniyappan Muthaiya. He is the head of the product scales of Carl Zeiss India. I guess Carl Zeiss has come into India only a few years ago, but it is an iconic company, and Mr. Muthaiya just shared with us that it is a 163-year-old company. I also came to know from somewhere something very unique about this company, that all the profits of Carl Zeiss, I believe, are given to charity, which is really something remarkable, and it speaks volumes about the kind of company that it is. So, Mr. Muthaiya, welcome to this forum, and we look forward to your views also. With that, we will open the panel discussion now on the subject, steps to establish a robust value chain and achieving 10x growth. So how do we go ahead? And I would request each of the panelists to kindly give their views in 3 to 4 minutes each as your opening remarks. And then we will go on to some specific questions for you. So may I request Mr. Sunil Banwari to kindly begin and to share his opening remarks with us first. Sunil ji, welcome. Please.
Okay, can you hear me now? Yes, okay. Okay, yeah, thank you, Rajuji, and thank you to Elsina for giving this opportunity. Also, thank you, Mr. Marwa. I think METI has done a phenomenal job. And the incentive schemes, the 3 incentive schemes rolled out, I think, are testament that METI is listening to the stakeholders and coming up with the right solutions, which I'm sure will take India in the right direction, and especially the PCB industry. I think just from my perspective, I will just share, I think what I see is the good news. I think the focus on Atmanirbharta, I think it's helping, and it's helping the mobile industry especially. And I think it's looking like, a lot of the Chinese mobile phone manufacturers, at least based on the news articles alone, it seems like the Indian mobile phone industries are going to become more prominent based on the news headlines I see from various prominent phone manufacturers. So that's the good news. I think I will tell you the bad news as I see it from my perspective. And please bear with me because there's quite a bit. So I think, as I've said before, right? I think we are exporting 90% of our product, which tells you that, and we are the largest PCB company. So it tells you we are competitive globally. We can compete with the best all over the world, and we are doing it day in and day out. And we have recovered from COVID, and we are doing it almost in full production mode. So it tells you right here in India, we have the technology, we have the capability to make it happen. So the question is, why is the mobile phone industry, which is benefiting from Atmanirbharta and replacing the Chinese manufacturers, why is it not happening domestically? To me, again, I'm being very blunt. I think they are just looking out for themselves. They don't want to spread the business around. They are happy to take the Atmanirbharta. They are happy to take advantage of it to ramp up their business, but they don't want to pass the business. They would rather go for cost and give the business to all the PCB companies in China, because Atmanirbharta is only, they think, for them to take money out of. I'm being very blunt, but again, I think it's something which needs to be said, because unless Atmanirbharta goes all the way to the supply chain, the PCB industry will never achieve its full potential. I can tell you, I will not name any names, and fortunately they are not in this meeting today, but the top mobile phone manufacturers, they are asking me to provide the best technology, which I'm providing to the world. They want it to be provided at a cost which is below my material cost. Do you think I will do that? I would be a very stupid businessman to do that. So I think, again, fundamentally, if we don't don't understand, I think if the high end of the supply chain doesn't understand that the benefits they are getting from Atmanirbharta needs to flow down the supply chain, then we will never achieve the vision we want. So I know those are strong words, and I apologize if I offend anyone, but I think it needs to be said. That's all I will say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, they were very blunt words, no doubt, but maybe it is the truth and it needs to be said. But I would look at it positively, and I would hope that maybe in the next few months or in the next year or so, I think everybody will realize that without a value chain, you can't really sustain. So are you looking at profits for 1 or 2 or 3 years, or are you looking, because India is not a one-time market, right? We are a market which is going to grow and grow and grow. I think it is India all the way for next at least 2 or 3 decades. So I think all of us and all of the businessmen in India, all of the industries in India need to realize that we need to look at India for the long run. And I'm sure that things are going to change as the value addition grows. So, and all of us are going to work together to make that happen. So maybe it's the beginning and people are not able to understand, but I'm sure. And Mr. Marwa is there, and I'm sure he's hearing what you're saying, and it will also be heard by the Joint Secretary. So I'm sure we have something to look forward to. Okay, with that, I will now proceed to Mr. Richard Pathota. Richard, will you please share your opening remarks with us now?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elsina. Thank you, all the panelists here. And I really appreciate Sunil for his open talk. I think that's really required to be understood by everyone. Let me put this way. Let me first talk about again the good news, the opportunities which are emerging in India now. We had fantastic July now. We, like Sunilji said, we have also recovered. Customers are recovering, and we see their forecast, which are going to be until November very bright. and especially from the flagship segments like mobile battery chargers, telecom. They're all doing really well. Actually, the setback we had due to the COVID has opened up multiple opportunities for us. The work from home, the online education, the remote health services, all that have actually created more opportunities for electronics in India. The demand for hardware has gone really up. There is the supply, there are delays in supplies now. And for people who want to buy laptops, tablets, Wi-Fi modems, they are struggling to get them on time now. So that's actually, there is a phenomenal increase in consumption in electronics. Especially people in automotive electronics, we see a lot of growth as people preferring to have personal transport due to the COVID. That has also increased a lot of automotive electronics now going there, because obviously automotive is going to be the two-wheelers and four-wheelers. And we are also seeing a lot of growth in personal healthcare devices, touchless security, facial recognition, security cameras. And this is what we are seeing. I'm actually talking from the businesses we receive from this kind of, customers, both EMS and OEMs. And also this is, I think, complemented fairly from the government as well. Government, I believe, is reviewing at the FTA routes now, where there is a lot of stuff coming in still. And if you look at the numbers of LED televisions which were imported in 2019 to India, really mind-boggling numbers. 720 million TVs were imported, out of which about 428 million from Vietnam and about 300 million from China. So if even, I mean, like Dave said, this itself is a sizable volume for PCB manufacturers here. And talking about appliances, I look at a lot of indoor and outdoor units of air conditioners, which are being imported from China. About 4 million of them last year. If they are made in India, look at the generation of square meterage for the PC fab industry. But the missing point here for the assemblers versus PCBA here is the price at which, like Sunil said, the assemblers are expecting a rock bottom pricing. And I relate this to the exactly like Marwaji said, the lack of scale in the industry, except for the top, I would say, 5-6 players. Rest of them don't have the real scale to even negotiate with the supply chain. Obviously, they will be not be able to compete at that kind of a level for volumes. They are okay for low volume, high mix kind of stuff. So this is the major challenge I see at PCB fab manufacturers. And when I spoke to some of them the last week, they said 99% of their RM is being imported, though it is a zero duty, but except consumables, I believe they import everything from outside. And some other factors also came out, like getting the right resources for the manufacturing. There are not, good qualified people coming to this industry. Many are opting for, branded companies like PCBs. They think it is not a quite attractive segment to be in. And other things they talked about, reforming the labor laws of 1948, and even 7 people can join together. They can actually form an union. And also they looked at the pollution control, the resources of water available, and even the power available. They are all, these were the things they obviously brought it out first. Then I understood these are the challenges they also have on them. So my, I mean, initial remarks are that, yes, there are plenty of opportunities in India right now, and it will emerge more and more. But unless we have the scale, like Marvaji said, I don't think as an industry we'll be able to really compete with people who are, exporting it out of China or other places to India. Rajuji, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Richard. Thank you. Very, very valuable points. Scale is very important. Labor issues keep coming up repeatedly, and though we are all aware there are a number of, laws are being amended, but it's a very difficult, situation for everybody. Also, I guess for the government, it's not an easy step to take, but a number of states have tried this. But I keep coming up, I keep, getting these, issues from our members who keep facing these problems. And they are something very, very difficult to handle. But yes, scale of production can help us a lot. I fully understand that. And unless we have scale, we will not be able to match price. So we need scale and we need some incentives. That is the only way that we can be, competitive. And I really hope that these policies, which are looking very good, are implemented fully and in letter and spirit, so that the benefits actually go to the industry. Unless that happens, we will not really be, it will. I just hope it doesn't remain so much on paper. So many applications are coming, and many people are interested, and many, investors are coming forward. We hope that this will continue to grow. May I now request Mr. Anurag to kindly share his views on what he sees is required to establish a robust value chain and to achieve, multiple growth in the next few years. Anurag ji, your views, please. Thank you.
Yes, a very good afternoon to all the participants and the dignitaries, the panel members, Manwani Saab, Raju ji. So actually I was quite, when I saw, warm regards to Marwa ji, and particularly for sparing the time, for attending this webinar, which is about the PCB industry. So actually, when I looked at Marwa ji's profile, and it says that 26 years in METI. So 26 years, in fact, is exactly the number of years now I have spent on the PCB industry. So more than 2.5 decades in the PCB industry. And whenever I get the opportunity whenever I get the opportunity to talk about the PCB industry, I'm very excited, very passionate about talking about how this industry can grow and what can be done about it. Promise and potential for growth, it can really grow leaps and bounds. If you look at the Indian IPCA figures for the industry, the Indian PCB industry should be in the range of $300 to $350 million of local manufacturing, leaving out the exports, which is done by AT&S. So this is the kind of production which is supplied to domestic industry, which is still minuscule, maybe constituting only 25% of the total consumption of PCBs in the country. Having said that, I would once again like to very briefly go to the disabilities, which has been talked about. So to repeat, one of the primary things is definitely there is a dumping by China and of the PCBs, differential between Indian PCB, and it's across the board. It is not any one particular company. So across the board, about 20%. So there's a 20% differential between the PCBs which are coming in from the China, and clearly there's a dumping which is happening. Then there is a complete lack of ecosystem, which is very well known. There are no laminate manufacturers. There's no ink manufacturers. manufacturer, and the lack of availability, always have to stock up a large carrying cost, which comes into our boards because we need to carry the inventory of the laminate, the inks, and practically everything which is imported, except one or two, like chemicals. There's Autotech, there is McDermott, and for drills there is Insphinx. So barring that, largely all the things are imported. So this is one of the big. Then another thing is the interest rate differential which exists between India and Thailand. So there is definitely capital cost involved, a larger capex. So these are coming back of steps like MSIPs, now specs. So these are the
Anuragji, sorry to disturb you.
good steps.
Anuragji, sorry to disturb you. Maybe you can, block your video because, your audio is not coming very clearly. It keeps stopping. So maybe you can stop and now that will be
Okay.
better. Yeah, thank you. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Is it better now?
Yeah, definitely better. Please continue. Sorry to
Hello?
disturb you. Yes, it is much better. Thank you. Continue.
Hello.
Yeah, it is very clear. Please continue.
Yeah, is it better?
Yes, it is better. Please continue.
Hello. So, hello.
Yes, please continue. It is better.
Is it better now? Yeah.
Yes, please continue. It is better.
So going forward, with in the past few years, the government has definitely diverted their focus on the electronic industry, the mobile industry, and also the PCB industry. And looking at that, I think particularly after COVID, the government is all the more keen to have Atmanirbhar Bharat, which means a lot of self-reliance. So to create that self-reliance, that is what the topic of today's seminar is about. So the government has adopted a top-down approach, wherein first they focused on the mobile industry or the top industry. Now they are also focusing on televisions with the import licensing having come in. They're driving the growth from the top. Then the PCBA also is being promoted. So now it is the turn of the printed circuit board industry. But like I said, looking at the disabilities and looking at the dumping which is happening, certainly the PCB industry needs some protection, without a doubt. And if we look at some of the schemes like MSIPs or specs is fine, but if we look at the PLI scheme, we work with Invest India, and they have helped us acquire a land. Mr. Uday Munjal, who we work with, he has helped us acquire a land for a large investment of 120 crores, which we have applied for in MSIPs. So while MSIP scheme is good, and there's a good support from organizations like Invest India, from Mr. Uday Munjal, and he also called me several times for applying in the PLI scheme. However, the PLI scheme is just not designed for the component industry. It is very well known that the component industry or the PCB industry, the capital to sales ratio is not more than 1:2 or 2.5 in the, on an extreme case. So there is no way that even if we do invest 100 or 120 crores, we would be able to take the benefit of PLI, because the PLI calls for almost a 6-time sales. So it is our request to Marwaji, who's present here today, and to the ministry. Even Elsina has taken up this cause in a big way. So it is my request that this point should be considered, and the PLI should be modified so that the PCB industry can actually take benefit of this. And this will really be a game changer for the PCB industry. it will bring in lots of investment and definitely a good growth for the industry. So this is my request to Marwa Saab, having being present here on behalf of METI. Apart from this, we need the laminate industry to come in, and I would, among the things which we want to create the ecosystem, the focus should be primarily on laminates and on inks. So if we talk about the copper clad laminates, if Invest India here again could play a major role in, showcasing this to the corporates in India, because this is definitely a good business which can, if the PCB industry grows, there would be a huge demand for the laminate industry. And one of the large corporates like Reliance or Mahindra or any of these could be actually roped in. Because when we talk about Atmanirbhar, how long would we keep depending on foreign investment? We could also look at roping in Indian corporates as a part of this, the game change which is going to happen with Atmanirbhar. So that's all. I mean, there is a lot to talk about, but I've restricted to the very few basic key points, and I hand over here to Raju. Thank you for giving me an opportunity. Thanks a lot to Elsina for giving me this opportunity to be a panelist here today.
Thank you very much, Anuragji. I think we need to thank you for being here also. I think it is the views of the industry which are really valuable and which take things forward. And, we have noted all the points, and I'm sure with, Mr. Marwa is here, he's also listening to what you were saying about the schemes and about PLI and specs and all that. So I think all these things are, going to change gradually. We'll see how far we can go with the current status of the PLI and specs, and maybe we'll have new schemes coming up. These are not the last. I'm sure more schemes are in the works which are about to be announced. We'll now quickly move, ahead with Mr. Kushal Patel. Kushalji, you are there. We look forward to your views and what you would like to say on behalf of IPCA also, which is a major, driver of, the PCB market, I would say. So look forward to your views. Mr. Kushal Patel.
Thank you, Rajuji. Thank you, Elsina, for having me as a panelist on, on this talk about how to grow a PCB manufacturing in India. I would like to thank Mr. Marwa also to spare his time, to hear our views, and he's always been a helping hand as far as IPCA and PCB industry has been concerned. Thank you, rest of the panelists. I think Sunilji, Anuragji, Mr. Patota, they've all touched on, what needs to be done to, take this industry forward. Without repeating, I'll just point out a few things that I agreed with. I agree 100% with Anuragji when he said that we need government's help if we really want to move ahead. There is a lot of pressure from Asian countries as far as the pricing is concerned. We have our own challenges which we cannot fight without government's help. I think government has always been there to listen to us, but I think the time is now when the world is looking to India. I think the manufacturing, the product manufacturing has been showing signs that they want to move to India. So component industry has a potential, but we will definitely need some help from the government to make sure that proper platform is being provided. I also agree with Mr. Putoda when he said that scale matters. Right now, Indian PCB manufacturing has always been, if you compare to China and other countries, a mom and pop type of manufacturing where, only a few big players have been there. I mean, we cannot even count ATNS since, they don't provide, they don't sell PCBs in India. Other than that, Epitome has been a very, big success story, growing from where they were 10 years ago to the number 2 manufacturer of PCB in India. But there are very few in between, ATNS and Shogini and Epitome and SN. We need more of Epitomes. We need more of ATNS to make sure that the India can provide high quality and good price PCBs. One way to do that is obviously, we need investment. But one thing where, a lot of people haven't touched is we need value additions. Right now, when we say, invest money in PCB industry, I believe invest money in value addition PCB industry. Making single side, double side, we know that, we know how to do that. So we don't need to spend money on that. Anyone can do that now. The real money or the real potential that lies is, in those value added boards, 6-layer, 8-layer, complex boards, 4-mil boards, HDI boards, so if the investment has to come, if the government has to help, I think the right help, the right investment would be in those value addition manufacturing. Know-how is there. We as manufacturers, we already know how to make those complex boards. We have good suppliers like Mr. Patota or Atotech or MEC. We have those guys. They can handle us and get to where we want. It's just a matter of fact where do we have the vision and the discipline to invest in the right human resource, invest in the right machinery to make sure that we can make those high quality boards. If India has to move, Indian manufacturing has to move forward, value addition has to be the key. Of course, it's easier said than done. Again, if the government is looking to, provide benefits, I strongly believe, I've always argued that instead of just giving, any benefits, as far as the financials are concerned to just PCB industry, incentivize those benefits, tell them that, what, if you make high layer boards, we will give you X benefits. If you make only, lower layer boards, then the benefits are limited. So the people who are looking for those benefits, they will be encouraged to, invest in those new machines and higher technology. That has always been my argument to METI and to the government. Hopefully, people are now seeing and more people would be investing. But without value addition, I don't think, India can move any forward. Other than that, I think, we have always cried about, what are the challenges and what needs to be done. So I don't want to be too pessimistic anymore. I think the time is now, there are opportunities. The market is there, as Sunilji said, they are working at full strength. Almost all the manufacturers, Touchwood, are, working at COVID level or better than COVID level. So the, the market is there, things are opening up, the demand is also going to be opening up soon. We just have to be ready, and hopefully, within next 2 years, we'll see those big steps that we were always hoping to take. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kushalji. Thank you for those very insightful remarks. I think your experience and the bandwidth of IPCA are extremely important for this industry to go ahead and to move forward. And we should not be pessimistic. Definitely not now. I think now is the time for India and time for our industry, and we can see a lot of positive things happening. Of course, there are challenges that we face with the often unfair competition that our industry faces, but I'm sure that will soon be a thing of the past, and we will be right on top. May I now invite Mr. Muthaiya from Carl Zeiss to kindly give his comments. I think you would like to speak a little more on the technical side of the testing and whatever else is on your mind. We look forward to hearing from you. Thank you so much. Welcome, Mr. Muthaiya.
Am I audible, sir? Very good afternoon, Raju ji and Marwa ji, as well as all the panelists and attendees. I represent today on this Elsina from a company called Carl Zeiss India, which is subsidiary of Carl Zeiss Germany. And most of the people might not knowing about this company. This is a 163-year-old company having presence in India for last 20 years. As all the panelists had said, as well as the industry focus or the volume with respect to PCB manufacturing in India, we also need to look at what is the quality of the product what we produce in India. Mainly, we touch upon the reliability studies and
quality at par with the global standards? Are we into it? We closely work with most of the OEMs or assemblers, not directly with the PCBs. Very few we work with the PCB manufacturers. Since ours is a global company, we also understand there are a lot of advancements happened in this sector, which is not being adopted in India. That is what one area where we can work along with Elsina and the suppliers or the manufacturers over here. And second thing, what I would suggest is in India, the mindset of the uh, manufacturers look at the cost of the equipment, not the output quality, what the variation what they get. So overall rejection rate, if there is a reduction because of the improved quality testings done at several stages. For example, multi-layer PCBs. In this multi-layer PCBs, the layer thickness of the adhesives what is being used, or the thickness of the individual layers, if there is an uniformity of few microns, this may lead to miracles. So we as a company are into complete range of product available for this quality testing, uh, product development, and failure analysis. Wanted to associate with Elsina. One point or one suggestion from our end is we also have our ZMCC, that is Customer Experience Centers in Bangalore, Pune, and Chennai. Very soon will be in Delhi, where we have a complete range of equipment. So looking at the MSMEs or the small players in this segment who will not able to afford the to buy the equipments, we can look into the offering the services for the analysis on a timely basis. This is what we can do. Or another way around, in a lot of academia institutions, we will find the core facilities. That means lab will be set up with a complete infrastructure, which will be shared by multiple departments. So some sort of central lab facilities can also be thought of to help the industry to be at par in the global when it comes to the quality. This is what I wanted to communicate to the team. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Muthaiya. In the short, time, what I could understand is that there is a lot of technical support, which Carl Zeiss can provide as being. So I think you have a lot of depth in the technology that you have, and I think it should help our industry, to cater to the technology requirements of PCB manufacturing and related technologies. That is what I could understand, and we really appreciate that. I think we should make use of Carl Zeiss and its expertise in this area. Thank you very much for that. I will now go ahead. We have a few questions for our panelists, and we still have about 15 minutes to go. So maybe we can have answers in about maybe 1 or 2 minutes each for these questions, and then we can have some open questions or some of them which are there in the chat. We'll try to answer them. So we have about 15 minutes, and I think we will go for a quick run through these questions. The first one I will address to Mr. Sunil Banwari. While we are witnessing rapid growth in the market, Mr. Banwari, this is driven largely by our growing market, and we are expecting that our market for bare PCBs will grow from 2.5 to 7.3 billion. Rather, it is 1.8 billion to 7.3 billion, which is really huge. I mean, and that may actually happen with the mobile phone and the industrial electronics, automotive, blah blah. Everything is growing. So I mean, there's nothing which is stagnant. So, do you expect that our industry will be able to take benefit of this opportunity and grow faster? And what are your comments on this?
Yeah, I think from a global perspective, I think the PCB industry is definitely on a growth path. I think whether you look at mobile especially, or industrial, or or networking or computing, I think all those sectors are poised for strong growth. I think the automotive one is struggling. I think it's probably well known. And we are exposed to that. So I think the automotive sector will definitely see not as big growth, at least for the next few years, until the debate over autonomous driving, how strong it is, strongly is it needed, especially in developing countries like India, pans out. I think moving to India, I think if we look at the different sectors, right, I'll probably give you a sector-wise analysis. Maybe if it's too long, you can cut me off. But from a sector-wise analysis, I think the automobile industry in India, I think it can be well supported by the PCB industry here, because as of now, the PCB requirement for automotive in India is still in the low density. I would say still probably 5 to 10 years behind the global automotive industry. So the kind of features you find in the European markets or American markets are not yet required in the Indian market, which means the capacity we have in India, the lower layer count, is sufficient for what we need, provided, again, the concerns on scale, which we discussed earlier, can be addressed. I think for the mobile industry, I'm actually very worried, because although the mobile industry, thanks to the incentives, will really prosper in India, when I look at the top names, the kind of PCBs they need require the highest technology. And that technology, I'll be honest with you, I'm the only company which can provide that. And if I cannot compete on price because because the material cost of what I'm paying for is more than what they are willing to pay, I don't really see that this big mobile market in India will actually benefit the PCB industry to any extent, unless we do something drastic. There could be drastic remedies the mobile industry should consider, such as, or the government should consider for the mobile industry, such as the sourcing requirements. Like for the public sector, you require 30% local sourcing. Maybe the mobile industry needs that. But I think the mobile industry, it will be very hard for the PCB industry in India to prosper, because at the level of the smartphone, the technologies are either not available in India, or if they are available at a price where the phone makers are tempted to not source in India at all. So that's my candid view of the market. But again, I know Mr. Anurag and Kushal may have different opinions, but that's just my sense. And just to clarify what I think I heard some previous participants say, yes, we are very export focused, but we also support the local industry, and we are shipping to domestic customers. But again, the intent, in fact, the intent for which ATNS came to India was to support the local industry. It's just unfortunate that with the ITA zero duty on PCBs, we can never be competitive with China. Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. That was again candid, and I think we need to address that. I think that is definitely we need to address. I'll quickly go on to Mr. Richard Patota. Maybe a few comments, from you regarding the supply chain, the local supply chain, and the manufacturers of inputs for the PCBs. I think we have a big challenge on that. How can we address this challenge, and would you have some suggestions for us on that? Over to you, Richard.
Yeah. Obviously, we see almost everything gets imported to the PC fab industry. Unfortunately, there are not big players here to support major raw materials, except a few consumables and some chemistries to some extent, of course. What I understand, laminates are available at 30% less for high volume consumers in China, enabling them to bid alongside our local manufacturers who import at a higher cost. This is one of the major challenges they have. And I also heard from the local manufacturers that when they go for quotations, what I understand is they are Chinese suppliers. 2 years ago, at least they had some kind of a level playing ground. But today, I believe, due to some government support from China, when they export out of China, they do have some kind of incentive. We are not sure what is that percentage numbers, but certainly they have an incentive to recover. So we are not now the local manufacturers, though it's zero import duty, still they are not able to compete with them due to the scale. Again, scale matters. And a second reason is the high mix, low volumes. They have to keep so much inventory of different kinds of laminates, which is really difficult for them to, the lead times can be much longer. A response time could be longer to these customers in India if the local manufacturers have to supply immediately. So definitely, RM dependency on imports is a major stumbling block for this industry to respond to customers on time. Unless, like Anurag ji said, the major industrialists in India, I mean the big conglomerates like Reliance or Tata's or Mahindra's, can invest into laminates manufacturing industry here. That is a major component for raw material for a PC fab industry. That can, to some extent, or even government, public sector, companies can actually, because this is an opportunity. There is a big opportunity for laminates today in India. Nobody can deny this. I think Marwaji will absolutely must be working on this on lines of for local manufacturing of major raw materials at least. Prepregs, laminates, copper foil. I'm not sure yet, but the copper foil should be can be brought from outside as well. But the chemistry for supply chain for chemistry is available. It's only matter of time for scaling up. We are one of them. I mean, if there is a demand, definitely we are going to scale it up in India. We are ready for any time. There are many players already there in India. So when it comes to challenges, these are the challenges I see for major raw materials in India now, where it makes our local manufacturers, doesn't keep them in the level playing ground versus the outside suppliers.
Okay, thank you, Richard. Thank you for those comments. You are an expert in this, in the supply chain issue. I only, while we are running out of time, but I still want to make one comment here, because what we have also, I think, recommended in our report and what we've heard from the industry is that while the supply chain is being developed, because it takes time for factories to be set up, for investments to be made and to convince investors, etc., etc., we should have some system by which we can have, stocking of raw materials in the country, without really charging them taxes, till the time they go to the final customer, or till the time, the manufacturer, picks up the raw material from the godown. So there was some such, recommendation which was given, and maybe it is possible. I think it is something like, a custom bonded warehouse or something. But what the industry doesn't want to do is, to have to pay, customs duties and the local GST, unless the time has come when, the good is actually used. I think that is one of the issues. But anyway, we'll take that up as we go along. I'll quickly go to Kushalji now, Mr. Kushal Patel. Would you like to share some of your comments about what can we do? See, because 60% of what we manufacture, and I'm sure you are also an exporter, is, being exported. And while we have a very small, manufacturing industry anyway, maybe, 250 million, maybe, 300 million, and 60% of that is getting exported. So what can we do really to, to service our, domestic market? Is there anything that you see in that area?
Yes, Raji. So about 30% of my manufacturing I supply within the country. So I have a fair share of what the Indian purchasers demand. One of the biggest thing they want is price. I mean, the Indian PCB industry is so price sensitive that, even for 2 paisa or 3 paisa per cm square, the customer is ready to, change the suppliers. It's somehow, we need to get the awareness out there, that, PCB is not something, it's not a commodity where, even a 2 paisa, 3 paisa difference, because quality matters. A good quality PCB versus a medium quality PCB, there is a big difference. So one thing, we need to educate our customers, and the reason I have sustained for last 2 decades, having those higher prices is to have them understand that the material that we use, the kind of engineering that we do, the support that we give, and hence the prices can be a little bit higher, but we can compensate in other services. Another way is because, our biggest Achilles heel right now is that we import almost 80% of our raw materials. So, we cannot work in just in time. We cannot, we have to bear, the extra cost of imports, especially right now, where the CFS charges are killing us. So all those charges are not making us cost effective versus the PCBs that the Indian manufacturer can import. So, it has always been a very difficult proposition. I mean, single layer and maybe double layer, we were still able to compete. But if you go to 4 layer, 6 layer, there is no way, the Indian PCB manufacturer can compete with the prices that China does. So unless we have a robust supply chain within the country where we don't have to stock, 3, 4, 5 months worth of our inventory, which in turn, giving the 8-9% capital cost that we are, paying to the bank, it just adds to the, the bottom line, takes off from the bottom line. So proper supply chain, governments help in setting up those stock and trade, centers. Right now, there is an inverted duty on, copper clad laminates. The duty, the duty was exempted, but then in February, that exemption was taken away. So right now what is happening is that we as manufacturers have to pay 5% duty on copper clad laminates versus there is no duty on imports of PCB. So there is an inverted duty structure that we have to fight off. If government, we have written at least 10 times to MeitY and other departments, and if government can look into that, where instead of putting burden on PCB industry, if they can help out PCB industry, just by the way of having those stock and trade centers and allowing those traders to stock, PC laminates and other material without paying any duty for X amount of period. And I'm not saying that, bring it duty free, but if they're supplying it to the PCB manufacturing, which they don't have to pay duty anyways, and let them stock it for us, they might make some money. They might be able to, buy in a quantity where the prices, can be negotiated by them so that we don't have to do it being a small player. So that was one suggestion I think we have been given, that, let there be a proper system for stock and trade so that, PCB manufacturers don't have to, stock up on the materials. Any kind of barriers, either tariff or non-tariff, to ensure that, the Indian manufacturers are being taken care of would always help. We have been asking for such barriers for at least almost 5-7 years now, and we're trying for the anti-dumping duty also. Let's hope something works. But other than the tariff, even non-tariff barriers like BIS certification and, proper quality certification for any imports, they will only help because, right now we are not in the same level playing field. We manufacture PCBs on X level, but China can, send PCBs of Y level, and still, because of the price difference, purchasers would buy those PCBs, rather than our PCBs. So any kind of barriers, if we can, create, if government can help us create, that would also help the industry. In the short run, once the scales have been achieved, then the barriers can be taken off, because once the scales are there, we can argue, we can negotiate with the material, we can negotiate with everything else. But until that scale has been achieved, I think, such help from the government would be needed. I think that's about it, Rajuji.
Thank you, Kushalji. Thank you. I know it's very complicated and not easy, but anyway, I will now quickly go to Anurag ji. Mr. Anurag Doot, would you like to say anything about the issues such as the capital output ratio, which is very high for the PCB industry? It has a very high value added cost structure. I think this is part of what the PCB industry is. And plus,
Mr.
of course,
Mr. Rajuji,
yes.
Rajuji, sorry, this is Anil. I have to drop off, so I'm sorry. I have another meeting to go to. Okay.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for
you.
being there, Sunilji. Thank you. Bye bye. Bye bye. So I would just like Anurag ji, would you like to comment on this? And for example, things like effluent treatment and all that. There are so many issues which are there with the PCB industry, and they all add to cost. So the cost out, the capital output ratio becomes really very, very high. While I mean,
Yes.
we are discussing something like this, but maybe you have some short comments on that. Please.
Yeah. Yes. Definitely, I would like to make comment on that, and particularly, I think since there was some disruption in my previous talk, So actually, if you see that the PCB industry in India has some other inherent disadvantages as well. Like we do not have common ETPs. Most of my whatever PCB industries I have seen in China, generally they don't have the effluent treatment plants because they come in common areas and they have the common ETPs where they pay some charges for the usage of that, but they do not have a capital cost. So we do end up having a large capital cost because a good effluent treatment plant costs anything between a couple of crores, for a larger, like when we are talking about a large plant which we are planning. So about a couple of crores we would need just to spend on the effluent treatment. Similarly, if we talk about like you said, like even another thing, concept which is seen in China and Taiwan is that they have some common drilling facilities, because drilling is a major capital cost for the PCBs, where the capital machineries are required in a large quantum. So there are these drilling shops and specialized shops which exist in countries like Taiwan, where they do just drilling, and the PCB manufacturers, they start from there on their process. So these are the things which considerably increase our capital investment, and as a result, our globally also the PCB industry, the sales to the capital investment to sales ratio is not more than 2, not considered as more than 2. And similarly in India, it is between 1.5 to 2. And that's the reason I emphasize that PLI should be, designed around this for the component industry to take advantage of it. And this could really help the component industry. Yes.
This is something that the industry has been saying, and in fact, I saw in the papers also that two large applications have come in under PLI for PCB manufacturing. But I was wondering how they will achieve their output. It seems to be a very, very big challenge.
I think they have just applied with the hope that something will happen. They've applied that they've just put in the application. Let's not lose the opportunity to apply. I don't think it is a possibility.
Yes, I mean it's remote, but I think the tough get going when the going gets tough, is something like that. So
we wish them all the best.
So we are kind of running out of time, but I need a few comments, last comments from Mr. Muthaiya, who's our fifth panelist, and very important comments, sir, from you. And then we will request Mr. Marwa to kindly release the report. Sir, kindly give us 5 more minutes. We'll be closing, but we will request you to Marwa sir, we'll request you to kindly release the report for us.
Yes.
So just give us 2-3 more minutes for your comments from Mr. Muthaiya. We don't really have a very specific question, but maybe you would like to say something about the manufacturing and process technology, which you already mentioned, but how you can help us.
Again, I would emphasize on the quality aspect with respect to the manufacturing. We have complete know-how on the global technologies, and we can assist the Indian manufacturers, whether it is a global players or large players or MSMEs. We already have centers in Bangalore, Pune, and Chennai, and we can also work with Elsina to create new centers if required. The idea is, like another panelist said, that in Taiwan they have a drilling machines where multiple players goes and gets the job done. The same way, this testing and with respect to the material testing or quality certification or failure analysis, we can work with Elsina. We have technical know-how, we have equipments, and we would prefer to sell these equipments and make use of the buyers to work on. But if something happens unable to buy, we can assist them by providing the services. And we are happy to work with the Elsina team going forward. That is what my closing comments would be.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Muthaiya. Thank you so much. We have a lot of questions also, but I think we will have to take them offline. I think the Elsina team has got all the questions already taken down, and we will respond to possibly all of them. We will certainly share our presentation with you also. We'll share it with all the participants. There is no issue with that at all. So with those few words, I would like to request Mr. Marva to please come back on firstly to release the report, and also Mr. Marva, many of the participants are asking as to when can they expect that maybe a slightly modified scheme will come, which will help them to apply and to get benefit of NPE 2019, particularly for the component side. And I think that is one thing which is of great interest to many of the participants. Maybe you can make a few comments on that and then kindly release the report. Sir, I hope the report has reached you and it is with you now.
Yes, it has reached.
Thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much. With your last comments and release of report, then we'll close. Thank you.
So actually, we have got this comment from a lot of quarters. The capital output ratio is too high for the electronic component sector. So we are seized of the matter, and I hope going ahead, government again puts in a scheme, the PLI scheme, at least for the electronic components, and because seeing the success of the PLI in the mobile and the limited electronic components that we put in the first scheme. Many other departments are also bringing out their respective PLI schemes, and we will also be, working for PLI for other sectors. For example, the IT hardware sector, the laptops and servers, which are covered under ITA 1. So these items also deserve, production-linked incentive to offset the disabilities. So going ahead, we hope that the government considers and allots us, we get the we get the funds to finance the future PLI schemes. But I am still hopeful that, electronic components, especially the ITA ones, they deserve to have a PLI at least for some more time, so that the manufacturers are able to claim that benefit, and also that capital output ratio is taken care of. And I was also going through the questions in the chat box, and one of the participants has said that we also need to promote the capital goods industry, for the PCB and electronic components. So that industry also needs to be promoted. So for that, I would like to say that in the specs, we have also included capital goods, for capital subsidy. If somebody manufactures, the industry manufactures capital goods for all the items which are covered in the specs, those capital goods manufacturing will also be eligible for capex subsidy of 25%. So that is a new thing that we have covered into the policy, and we going ahead as we promote the components manufacturing, electronics manufacturing in a big way. We also want to build our capital equipment industry. So now I think with those words, I will conclude.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Marva. I think that gives us a lot of hope. There are a lot of questions here. If there is any other comment from any panelist, that's fine. We can take it in a minute or so. Otherwise, we will release the report, and I will request Mr. Manwani. Mr. Manwani, sir, I would request you to make the last closing comments on what you have heard, and if something you would like to say to all of us. But prior to that, we'll request Mr. Marva to please release the report, sir. Thank you so much. Sorry we have to do it in this way, but
I think we are able to see
yes,
that?
yes, we are. Yes, very well, sir. Thank you so much. Mr. Manwani also has a copy, so please, we'll be grateful if you can show it to everybody. This report is ready. It has been completed. It's fairly comprehensive. It's not easy to do a comprehensive report. So thank you so much, and I'm sure it will help everybody, sir. Thank you, Mr. Marva. Thank you, Mr. Manwani.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elsina, for bringing out this very timely report.
Right. We will have this report available in Elsina, sir. We'll have it available in Elsina.
Raju, if I may come in,
yeah, please, sir.
like
Yeah,
to
your
say a
closing
few words
comments.
as you suggested.
Yeah, please, sir, your closing comments.
Firstly, as I said, it was a wonderful panel discussion. Can you hear me? Because I
No,
hear a
yeah.
hum
No, yeah,
in the
it's
background.
kind of yeah, it's kind of stopped. So if you can please repeat yourself, maybe without the video. I mean, sorry, we can't see you, but we like to hear you. Sometimes, you know, it works better without the video.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Well, wonderful session as always. We had the entrepreneurs and the business leaders in the PCB industry who have really shown a lot of resilience over the years, despite the competition from our neighboring countries. The fact that they have shown that resilience, it's a good omen for the industry. I mean, we'll survive. But a couple of other comments that I would like to make is that I think the government has played a very positive role, particularly for the PCB industry. Through these NP 2019, they have come out with a spec scheme as well as a PLI scheme. Yes, there are some questions about turnover ratio, about investments, etc., etc. But at least some start has been made. I can only tell you that I have been associated with the PCB industry for almost more than 30 years, but I've never seen such a proactive MITI and such a proactive government. So you'd like to thank the officers in MITI, Mr. Marwa, Mr. Saurabh Gaud, and of course the secretary, Mr. Ajay Sani. Things are changing. When I'm sure some of you will agree with me that when we started the PCB manufacturing way back in the early 1990s or later 1980s, the cost of capital was anywhere from 18 to 21%. Today it has come down to 8 to 9%, and the good news is that because the MSME definition is changed and it's been redefined. Therefore, there's an interest subvention available to the MSME sector, and barring one company, I think all PCB manufacturers now fall in that MSME category, perhaps. So, the cost of capital is going down. The infrastructure and ecosystem is, going to be a work in progress. Rome was not built in a day, and similarly, the PCB industry will not be built in a day. We all have to put our, mind together, work collectively as an industry, and see to it that the PCB industry flourishes, and stalwarts like Anurag Doot, Mr. Anurag Doot, or Mr. Manjunath of Ascent, or Kushal Patel, or Paresh Vasani, and the others who I may have forgotten to name. But I think the industry has future, a great future. Certainly, it will not be easy, but good fruits never come easy. So we'll have to all work toward burn the midnight oil and put in the effort to succeed. And that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Right, sir. Thank you so much. With that, we have to close, and I will just say that this presentation, which which they have shared with us, we will share with all the panelists, and if anybody wants the report, they can definitely write to us. We will make it available to them very easily. So please don't worry about it. Please write to us, and we will send it to you. I think we should all work towards a large and growing PCB industry and a very large ESDM sector in the country in the next few years. With that, thank you so much. Bye bye to all. Have a nice day. Bye bye.